You are wearing clothes right now, something no other animal on Earth does, only us. You have worn clothes every single day of your life. Every morning, the first decision you make is what to wear. It feels so normal, so necessary, that it is almost impossible to imagine life without it. But for most of human history, nobody wore clothes. For the vast majority of our existence as a species, bare skin was entirely normal. Not even a scrap of fur, not even a leaf. Humans walked the earth completely unclothed for hundreds of thousands of years. Our species is roughly 300,000 years old. Clothing is a recent invention. So when did we start, and why? The answer is stranger and more fascinating than you would ever expect. Because the real story of clothing touches on identity, parasites, survival, and what it means to be human.
The obvious answer is warmth. Humans moved into colder climates. They needed insulation, so they wore animal skins. Simple, logical, and probably partly true. Clothing clearly does keep you warm. That part is undeniable. But it cannot be the whole story, because the timing does not work. The geography does not work, because humans wore clothes long before they moved into cold climates. If warmth was the only driver, clothing would have appeared in cold Europe, not warm Africa. The earliest evidence of clothing comes from Africa, where it is warm, not in Siberia, not in northern Europe, in warm tropical Africa. So if it was not just warmth, what else was going on? The real reasons are more practical, stranger, and more interesting than warmth alone.
Here is where it gets genuinely surprising. The answer may have started with lice. Human body lice are different from head lice. They live in clothing, not hair. And because they evolved specifically to live in clothing, scientists can date when they first appeared. Body lice diverged from head lice roughly 170,000 years ago. That evolutionary split only makes sense if clothing existed for them to move into. That is when clothing probably began, because that is when the lice that live in it first evolved. 170,000 years ago, in warm Africa, humans started wearing something. Whatever it was enough to give lice a new place to live. And it was not for warmth. The climate was warm. Something else drove it.
So what were the real reasons? They were probably several, happening at once. Humans are complex, and the reasons we do things are rarely simple. First, protection. Not from cold, from sun, thorns, insects, and abrasion. A layer of hide between your skin and the world is useful in any climate. Sharp grass, biting insects, thorny bushes, a hide protects against all of these. Second, carrying. Early clothing may have been worn as a kind of portable bag. Before bags existed, the body itself could be the carrier. Tie a hide around your waist and you have a place to store food, tools, gathered plants. A portable pouch meant you could range further and carry more back to camp. This may have been one of the earliest uses of animal skin, not to cover the body, but to carry things. Third, parasite control. Clothing created a physical barrier between skin and the insects that fed on it. Fleas, mites, ticks, mosquitoes, a hide blocks all of them. In a world without any form of medicine, reducing parasite load was a genuine survival advantage. Parasites cause anemia, weakness, and infection. Fewer parasites meant a stronger person. A person with fewer parasites had more energy, fewer infections, better health. In evolutionary terms, clothing was a powerful adaptation for survival.
But making clothing was not simple. Turning a raw animal hide into wearable clothing took days of skilled work. Someone had to kill an animal, skin it carefully, clean the hide, preserve it. Ancient humans used specialized stone tools called scrapers to clean the hides. Hundreds of hours of skilled work went into making a single piece of usable clothing. Evidence of hide scraping tools appears in the archaeological record over 100,000 years ago. This tells us humans were preparing animal hides long before sewing was invented. Sewing came later. The oldest known needles are about 50,000 years old. Thin bone needles, precise and elegant, found across Europe and Asia.
These needles are extraordinarily fine. They show great skill and great patience. Someone 50,000 years ago sat and sewed, with patience and skill. They chose thread, they made holes, they joined pieces together. This is design. That is not primitive. That is craft.
But clothing did more than protect. It changed us. Once clothing covered the body became something that could be decorated. Pigment, shells, feathers, teeth, all of these were used to decorate clothing. Color, pattern, shape, cut. For the first time, what you wore said something about who you were. I am from this group. I have this status. I have these skills. I believe these things. Status, group, skill, belief, all communicated through cloth. Long before writing, clothing was the most powerful communication system humans had. Clothing also changed how humans saw their own bodies. The covered body became something private, something significant. Covering the body gave it new meaning, new power, new social weight. And once the body was private, clothing became social, political, cultural. Uniforms, crowns, robes, prison clothes, wedding dresses, all are clothing as power. From the first animal hide to fashion, identity, and culture, the distance is shorter than you think. Fashion is not shallow. It is one of humanity's oldest instincts.
And here is the twist. We assume clothing was invented for practical reasons and then became cultural. Protection from cold first, then modesty, then self-expression. That is the assumed story. That is the story we have always told. Practical origins, cultural development. First warmth, then modesty, then fashion. But the evidence suggests the order may have been different. What if identity came first? What if humans dressed to show who they were before anything else? The cultural meaning may have come first, or at the same time. From the very beginning, clothing may have been about identity as much as protection. In almost every ancient culture we know of, clothing marks identity before it provides warmth. In tropical cultures with no need for warmth, people still wear elaborate clothing. What you wore told people who you were, which group you belonged to, what you believed. A stranger could read your whole story in a glance at what you wore. The first clothes were not just protection, they were communication. And communication through clothing is one of the oldest, uniquely human behaviors. Every outfit you have ever worn has carried a message. What you chose to wear today told the world something about who you are. And it has been that way for 170,000 years. Every human who has ever dressed has been doing exactly what you do, saying something without words.
Subscribe. Every day we dig up one piece of the ancient human story.